Good evening. I'm Jake. I'm 29 years old, born and raised in the Caribou in central BC. I, like to a lot of other people, had a lot of trauma growing up and a lot of things that transpired throughout my childhood and all throughout my teen life and all the way to being an adult. And I think it's time that I start talking about that with other people so I can connect with other people and they can hear a little bit about my story so we can level with each other on the same kind of frequency. So I figured I'd start making videos and making a podcast, and I wanted to start touching more people's lives so they could hear my story and they could decipher for themselves if that might help them in the future or going forward. And yeah, so I didn't script anything here. As you can see, I don't have any paper with me or anything. I'm going off the top of my head here, so excuse me if it gets a little blurted and all over the place. I was confused, especially around the age of 17 to 18, and I started growing towards alcoholism extremely, and I was drinking profoundly pretty much every single day, not at work or anything like that because I was a fully functioning addict. But every day after work, I would have to drink like a 2-6 or a case of beer. Or I'd just have to have a drink, and I had like a massive alcohol storage cabinet that I would keep on display because I guess I thought at that point in time that was something that cool people did, and that was something that was cool for society and culture, I guess you could say. Boy, was I wrong. Life can be cool like that though, because it teaches you these amazing lessons at random spontaneous moments in your life when you're actually meant to hear those lessons. So I'm very grateful to have my spatial awareness and my conscientious mind, and I'm so grateful that I have found spirituality in this day and age, and I can understand myself, this body I'm living in, and this dimension that we're on. I resorted to drinking, which shortly after I hit 18 resorted to drugs, and after that it pretty much just went downhill for almost 7 years consecutively. I was just looking for any kind of instant gratification or any kind of dopamine fix to get my levels like at a tolerable point where I felt comfortable and I felt good in my environment. But it was just never helping me. It was suppressing, and I never realized it, and it was so hard to see that at the time. Now that I'm over 4.5 years sober, off of narcotics or any chemical compound drugs, and over 14 months off of alcohol now, I have such a clear, lucid thought process and life now, and my intentions and my will, everything has changed, and my life has become graceful. And I would just like to share a little bit more of my story with you guys. So, doing the drugs and the drinking was more or less to get out of the state of mind that I was currently in, because there was so much misery and pain where I was in my life, and drugs and alcohol seemingly brought me out of that mode where I was in, and it made me feel comfortable, and it made me feel more tolerable, I should say, to my environment, which was extremely unhealthy. I see that now and I recognize that now, but it's very hard to see that when you're in that vicious circle or cycle. And yeah, it's been intense for the last 4.5 years now. It's been a lot of work and a lot of crazy mental health approaches, different ceremonial approaches, lots of retreats. I've regained a Kindle in me from my childhood, and I've restarted reading now. I've really grown a lot of passion towards reading and expressing myself in forms of language that are a lot more appropriate, you could say. I think the hardest part about growing up and realizing things in life is realizing that nobody's going to be there to hold your hand or help you through anything, and nobody's going to be there to support you or But that's when it's all on us, and it always has been. And that's why I just wanted to share my story, because that's how it's always been, and that's how it always will be. So that's why I want to support you, and that's why I wanted to make a channel, and I wanted to reach more people and touch the hearts of more people, so I could talk about my story, and then we could level with each other, and we could just be honest and copacetic with each other, and live a life with unconditional support and love, because that's all I want to do, and that's all I want to do for others. So yeah, here it goes. I guess when I realized I was a drug addict, I did mushrooms for my first time, and I was at it was kind of like a ceremonial thing. There was like 22 of us, and we went out at 108 Lookout, and we all did mushrooms together, and there was 12 people tripping the one day, and then 10 anchors, and then there was 10 people tripping the next day, and 12 anchors, so everybody had a pair essentially. And yeah, the first night was great. I didn't do mushrooms the first night, so I was just hanging out with everybody and vibing and making sure I was holding everybody's kite string, I like to call it, so they were held down to earth and they were grounded. And it was an amazing first night. And then the second night came, and that was my day to take them, and everything seemed amazing. It was such a wonderful experience. And then just out of nowhere, I had an epiphany, a real epiphany. Like a sudden smack, right, stop dead in the tracks. And I realized that I was a drug addict. I realized that I was hiding everything from my family. I realized that I was hiding everything from my friends, from my workplace, partners, from every person around me, from even myself. And that's the part that hurt me the most, is that I actually had to hide things from my own self, because I don't think we should have to hide anything from ourselves. I think that we should be brutally honest with ourselves and push ourselves to our fullest potential. And we should always strive to be the best that we can possibly be in every way, shape, and form, which can be so hard, especially when you feel so alone. There's so much going on in your physical environment, not only with people and your surroundings in your workplace, but also with relationships and workplace dynamics and parents, coming into nieces and nephews and siblings, and there's a lot of things that become tangible and all interconnected there, and it all becomes relevant when you start realizing it. And that's what makes it so intense and powerful and beautiful. It's because you can link all of these things together, and you can be one with all of these things, because that's truly what I think and feel that we are all one. We are all one, every single one of us. So yeah, that day I was sitting there, I was just hanging out in a tree, like 15 feet up in there with my friend Grayson. And it was a wicked time. We were having so much fun. We both thought we were eagles, but then that's when it hit me. It was like a ton of bricks just dropping on my chest. And it became hard to breathe. Everything was just so clear as day. I didn't even understand how I could never have seen it. So something has to change now. It has to. So that's when I came out to my family, and I told my family I was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And yeah, I strived to move back home with my family, and thankfully I had the love and support of my family. And coming off of drugs can be extremely hard when you're trying to quit, and you're relapsing, and you're having withdrawals, and you already have so much trauma built up and all of these emotions pent up from repressing for so many years consecutively that it's ready to explode at any point. So I was having things in my environment, even small things in my environment were changing my physiological reactions in my body, which was really hard, because I didn't want to be a reactive person who said terrible things to anybody, and I didn't want to be somebody who was explosive, if you will, or somebody that was passive aggressive, or did any of those things to cause ill will or resentment or any pain to any person whatsoever. But in actuality, you don't really realize that you could be the most beautiful person in the world with the most purest heart and the most truest intentions. But the problem is if you don't have a clear state of mind and a relevancy to you being present in the current moment, then unfortunately you're not gonna link too well with your environment. So things that could be like a beautiful saying to you could actually be extremely detrimental to somebody else's mental health or physical well-being. And that's something else that very well affected me as well. I was born and raised around 3 other siblings. They're all diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, amongst other several disabilities, if you will, or learning disability, whatever you want to call it. I fell into that trap my whole life, and I always thought that I was ADD. I'm not really hyperactive. I'm sure you can tell I'm sitting pretty still, for the most part at least. So I never really had an issue with the hyperactive, but I definitely had a problem with focusing and keeping tasks done and staying on task, and even doing well in school. I had an extreme focus problem, and I would just be talking or just doing something, writing or drawing, or I was just doing something else 24/7 because I never really realized it. But now that I'm actually looking back at it right now, like, I'm pretty sure I was just so traumatized that I was just trying to get out of my head at any point in time for any length of time that I possibly could, which once again is pretty wild to think back, but it's beautiful having the spiritual awakening that I've been having to myself, and being able to conscientiously look back at that and see that I'm aware of those situations and that I'm learning and growing. And that's what I aspire for every single person, and that's what I want to inspire in you today. Life is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat shit. It's hard. It's really hard. And there's a lot of bumps. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of rides you don't sign up for. Sometimes you just want the best things for everybody, but you can be pushing so hard, and you can be suffocating people with your opinions or your love and your respect and your compassion. And once again, that was just nothing that I had ever wanted to do to anybody. I just wanted to support people and love them and unconditionally just be there for them so that they had somebody, because it was something that I didn't have. So it was something that I always aspired for other people to have at all points in their lives. And yeah, so being a person like me, recently I found out last year in March that I was codependent. A lot of people don't know what codependent is, but that's the reason why I'm doing this, is because I want to raise awareness to a lot of things. And it's not just in a circumstantial way that's surrounded between drug addiction and trauma. It's entirely based around life, and it's just based around my experience in life. So when I found out I was codependent, it was like the biggest sigh of relief, because like anybody else, at least if you're honest with yourself, when you first try something new or you get brought into something, you don't really see it as being codependent, if you will, right? You don't really see that. So I went to the first meeting and I didn't feel anything. So I was like, whatever, but I do give things a good chance. I'm not just going to give it a one and done. So I went back a second time, and it was the second time when we were all sharing together, and it really hit me deep. One of the ladies that was sharing had said a circumstance that had happened to her recently. And it rang so true to me that it brought tears to my eyes, because it was almost an identical scenario to the exact situation that I had encountered in my life. So there's that ring again in my ears, that frequency, that wake up, that bag of bricks dropped on the chest, breath gone, winded. But it was also, when I could finally breathe, it was a sigh of relief, because I was finally figuring out myself. And that's been a long journey. It's been a lot of trying to figure out myself and who I am in this world, and why I am in this world, or what I am meant for in this world, which I still quite possibly don't know, and I don't know if I ever will. But that's the beautiful thing about life. Life guides us, and it's going to take you on the ride of your life if you're willing to grab the bull by its horns and actually ride it. But if we're going to step back and we're going to stick in our heads and we're going to get insecure and we're going to listen to all of our past traumas and feel all of the things that we've already felt all growing up and in our teenhoods and everything else that we have experienced throughout relationships and work and being fired and everything else that happens to us, you really start waking up to all these things. Excuse me. I was bullied so badly as a kid that I didn't even want to do anything. I didn't even want to get out of bed. I have a very primitive memory. It's very limited to my childhood, because in school I just remember crying on the bus, and like crying at lunchtime, and crying at recess. I remember crying in the bathroom, crying between classes. I just remembered being so hurt from everything. So hurt. And never understanding why. I just was so loving and caring and compassionate. I never understood why I was just like deserved all of this and to feel so hurt my entire life. And that's when, once again, I'm just looking back at it now, and the awareness is just beautiful, because like I had to go through what I had to go through so that I could talk to you today. I had to experience all the hurt so I could talk about it, and I could share with you, and that maybe we could connect, and you could learn something from me, or I could learn something from you. I think it's beautiful that we as human beings can teach each other, and if we could just stop and just listen to each other and not respond, but just listen. I think that there's some beautiful tones that get brought out in conversations that you would never anticipate. And I feel as if I would have had somebody that would have done that for me, I don't think I would have went down drugs and alcohol for 7 years consecutively. And that's what makes life so hard, is looking back at that and understanding that, and then having to reprocess all of that and reliving all those moments. Because those are no joke. That's intense stuff. Growing up, my old man told me that I was a faggot because I had emotions. That was his word for word, so please excuse me. I just was sensitive, and I was in tune with my heart. I knew how to feel my emotions, and I knew how to express them. And that made me, in some way, shape, or form, homosexual to my dad. So, needless to say, I was told that if I had emotions and I was going to show my emotions, then I could move out, and that he didn't support homos. So, that was pretty confusing growing up in that kind of environment. And on top of that, my mom's been very traumatized herself, and it's not my place to talk about my parents' trauma, and it's not my place to talk about my parents' experience. It's only my place to talk about mine. But my mom was very traumatized herself, and she didn't even understand what she was doing at most of the points in her life, nor did my dad. And I truly believe that in the deepest part and the strongest part in my heart, that they did their best and they tried their best that they possibly could in every way, shape, and form. And I'm forever grateful for them for that. But growing up was extremely confusing because my mom was so traumatized that she was also having physiological changes from her environment 24/7. At one point, it's actually not at one point, for probably like 10 years consecutively, I thought my mom was bipolar, because things would flip like this, and it would be loving and caring, and then it would be extremely sarcastic and narcissistic. And it was extremely hard on my mental health, because if you don't know this, here's a little fact bomb for you. As a child, if you do not have a healthy support system for yourself, aka a good parent, a good grandparent, a good uncle, even a good friend, somebody that is a healthy, conducive environment for you, then you're going to go and you're going to repress. Because what happens is you don't have any comfortabilities and you don't have any support lines. So when you don't have any comfort and you have no support, you have zero places to turn. You're like the rat that's backed into the corner. You back any animal, any single animal into a corner far enough, it doesn't matter how big you are, it's going to attack you. Because it doesn't know where to go. It has nowhere to go. You are the only way to go. And it was really hard to see that, right? Granted, I was a kid, right? So
that was extremely confusing, not having anywhere to go, just going home and crying in my room, or separating myself, or doing anything I could to keep my brain away from that vicious cycle loop that was just constantly going in my head, that I wasn't enough and I was a fat kid and I smelt bad. I had a speech impediment, so I talked funny. I spit when I talk because of my speech impediment and because of my severe underbite. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. I got made fun of a lot because I liked sweatpants back in the day. That's actually a reason why I don't actually wear like sweatpants as an adult. I only have like 2 pairs of sweatpants, and I barely ever wear them. And it's because I used to like this red pair of sweatpants, and my mom couldn't get me to not wear something else, so she bought me 5 pairs. So I would wear my red sweatpants every day because I think it was because I was fat and it was the only thing that fit me comfortably. But I was harassed so badly that it really ruined my my mental and physical health, and it still caused me body dysmorphia to this day. Having all of these things happening around me, and then on top of it, to my parents, it's extremely hard to function. On top of that, I don't have a healthy family. My cousins and aunties and uncles and stuff, I called them every single Sunday, from probably when I was 5 or 6 all the way until about 8, I would say. So almost 2 or 3 years. Every single Sunday morning I would call them and we would talk, and it would take up probably 2 hours of my Sunday mornings just to talk to my family. And then, bless my mom, she interrupted me one day and said, "How was your conversation?" And I told her it was lovely, thank you. And then she said, "Do they ever call you?" And I said, "No, why?" And then she was like, "I just want you to try something for me." And I was like, "Okay." And then she just asked me to stop calling them next Sunday to see if they're going to call me. So I did. And yeah, nobody called. So I just thought it was a busy day or whatever, and no big deal. Next week they're going to call, right? Like we've talked for years, every single Sunday. So yeah, I wish I could say that was the truth. I didn't get any phone call ever again. And I'm not just saying that. Ever. Throughout our childhood, our cousins would even come up, and they had a cabin in a 100-mile house where I was born and raised in the Caribou, and they wouldn't even message us. They would just go to their cabin and not even talk to us, or we'd like see them in town getting fuel or something, and it was really uncomfortable because they're from the Lower Mainland. So for them to be 5 hours away, really close to our house, and them not even to say anything to our family was extremely detrimental to my physical health, physically. And that's when I realized that, I think at that moment, I realized when I was 8 years old that nobody's going to be here for me. There is nobody. It's just you. And I mean that. It's just us. But that's all you need. And that's why I'm here again today. This is one of my favorite quotes today, because it hits so powerfully and it's so small. You were born with everything that you need. You don't need anything else. You were born with all your fingers, all your toes, with a beautiful heart, lungs, a beautiful stomach to process all the food. You have an amazing kidney, process all of the fucking drinks in you. A beautiful liver, like we're full of all of these amazing things. Like the gallbladder, kind of useless, but it's not. None of it was relevant, tangible. None of it made sense, but this made sense. This finally was making sense. I was realizing that, yeah, there was nobody coming. This is it. You got you, and that's it. And that's the best part, I think, about that realization. Because then I stopped looking outwards. I'd realized that I wasn't going to have a family who was going to support me. I realized that I wasn't going to have cousins that were going to message me. I realized that I wasn't going to have parents that were going to be around all the time. And or siblings that wanted to do anything that the boy wanted to do, and so forth. So I think realizing that at such a young age really, really, really helped me in a lot of ways, at least for that developmental area. Once I realized I was a drug addict and I got away from the drugs and I moved back home and I finally got sober after 2 years of struggling, my life completely changed. And I mean that in such a figurative and metaphoric way, it's not even funny. The universe started looking out for me because I was starting to look out for myself. My thoughts started changing, my opinions started changing, my beliefs started changing, and then my experience started changing. My circumstances, everything around me started changing because I was changing. It took a long time for me to get to the place where I am at today, to actually look at you today and say that I am extremely fucking happy. There's so much that has happened in such a small time in my life that it seems like I've been here for already 50 years, but I'm only 29. And I think that's the crazy thing about trauma and experiences in life, and even just in general with time, because it can be so irrelevant. You can spend 10 minutes having the best time of your life with your nieces and nephews riding water slides, and then you can be trying to finish the last 15 minutes of a test where you're struggling on 6 questions and it seems like you've been there an eternity. So it makes it such a cliche. I think understanding all of these things has led me to this path that I'm on today. And I'm super, super, super grateful that I'm able to share this with anybody. And to be honest with you, I'm not doing this for any fame, any publicity. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this so I can reach out to other people and I can have people hear my story. That's all I wanted. That's all I've ever wanted. Going forward, I would love to connect with more people and I would love to express in a lot of other ways as well. Not only in trauma or drug or alcohol related environments, but I've researched quite a bit at this point and I would love to touch basis on quite a large, vast things that have been helping me in so many different ways now. After I quit drugs and got sober, I gained an immense amount of weight. I went through some paranoia and some weird things, I guess I could say, that were happening to my body. And I went in for tests and I got everything done and I got every test you can pretty much imagine at that point. Everything came back about 2 weeks later and they said I was perfectly healthy. There was nothing wrong with me. And that's when stuff really started to click, because that's when I really realized that, holy shite, I am a drug addict and an alcoholic. Once again, easiest point of my life, because it was like a weight of giant Santa Claus bag of bricks getting dropped right on my chest. I couldn't breathe, but then all of a sudden it just felt like the weight was lifted and then I could breathe. Everything was clear. Everything was beautiful again because I could understand what was happening to me, and then I could just start with the process and then the mitigation, integration. All of those things were so beautiful to be able to come to awareness and understanding with myself and my environment, and it's really helped me push to the man that I am today, which I can once again say that I'm so fucking proud. I am unbelievably proud of the accomplishments that I have done and everything that I have quit in my life. So I gained an immense amount of weight. And when I mean an immense amount of weight, I'm 6'3". I've always weighed approximately 215 to 220 pounds. In March 2021, to be exact, March 13th is when I weighed myself. And I remember because I was in shock. I was absolutely ashamed. I had completely let myself go for 2 to 3 years. I was at 288 pounds and I was so embarrassed. I didn't even want to look in the mirror. I didn't even want to talk to anybody. I didn't want anybody to say anything to me. I was so depressed. I was so messed up because I guess I had thought that because I quit drugs and quit drinking, I was just healthy now. And that is the wild part that I wanted to bring up next. It's that even though we know these things and we conquer them and we even get to the integration, are we? Are we really? because I always thought I was. But in actuality, I was just still sitting there depressed every day on my couch, smoking cigarettes and eating horrible foods. Processed foods, terrible dyes, bleach, flour, just awful foods. Nothing that was tangible for my physical well-being at all. And that's when, once again, another epiphany hit. I had to change. I was extremely overweight. If I was going to keep heading down this path at the age of 26, what am I going to look like when I'm 50 or 60? So that one hit deep. That one hit really, really deep. So it led me down my next path, and that was all of the poisoned food that we're eating, all of the terrible processed foods, all of the horrendous sugars, all of the corn syrups, all of these terrible dyes that are banned in so many different countries, but for some reason they're put into our foods. All of these foods were causing my insulin levels to be so high that I was constantly at a state of storage and fat, and I was constantly storing because of my insulin levels were never dropping. So for the longest time, I wasn't even able to lose weight because my insulin levels were so high that my body was insulin strong, or whatever you want to call it. It had built up to such an extreme tolerance to insulin that it wasn't even, like, even if I cut back on food or I ate better, I was still just staying the same weight, which is extremely hard on somebody, especially when they're trying to lose weight and do better for themselves. So I kept going though, and then I kept with the process of elimination, because that's the one thing that's worked in my life, is slowly eliminating things and then understanding them and then moving forward with my life. So I slowly started cutting out dairies, I slowly started cutting out cheeses, I slowly started cutting out fat, I started cutting out pork, I started cutting out bacon, all pork, which is crazy, I know. And yeah, it went A to Z, right? I stopped processed foods, I stopped refined sugars, I stopped drinking pops and energy drinks, I stopped drinking Gatorades and electrolyte drinks. I put that in quotations because an electrolyte has 3 parts to it, and the number 1 electrolyte drink that is sold worldwide literally has salt in it, which is 1 of the 3. So it just doesn't add up. There's something there that just doesn't add up. Those things all drastically helped me. I started losing weight probably by 10, 15 to 20 pounds every single month. Maybe not every month, sorry. Probably about 5 to 8 pounds every single month, which was amazing. It was amazing progression for me. And then I started learning about fasting. And this is something that's fairly recent. The science behind fasting is one of the most beautiful, powerful things that you can do to your body. Now, I don't know if you know about fasting or not, but I'm not no scientist myself. But from my understanding and from my research, I could tell you about a couple of really cool things. Like I was saying earlier, with the insulin levels being so high in my body, I was constantly at a fat storage stage. The only way to remove those insulin levels is to cut back your carbohydrates and your sugars, your fructoses, your glucoses, your corn syrups, all of these things that are tied to the sugars, right? So that's what I did. I started removing those, and then it worked. I started losing weight. Officially today, I have lost 90 pounds. I'm sitting at 200 pounds. Still at 6'3", and I've never been in better shape in my life. I'm hitting the gym 3 to 5 days a week. I have been for over 6 months consecutively. And I can't stop, won't stop, I believe is the saying. I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna keep ascending, and I'm gonna keep raising my level as high as I possibly can until I can inspire as many people as I possibly can. And yes, I said aspire, because I want to be not only an inspiration, but I want people to see my journey, and I want people to feel that, and I want people to connect in such a way that they also want to do a journey like that. And I'm not saying it has to be in the same shape, way, or form in any way. I'm not saying we went through anything remotely similar, because every single human's experience is completely different. We all have different attachments. We all have different attachments to certain things. But there is one fact, and I know this as a statistic from Bruce Lipton, an advanced neuroscientist that I love to follow. We are born with all the exact same hearts, boy or girl, and that is what decides our feelings. So we all have the same potential to have a higher or lower feeling rate, which made it once again very hard. because mine was extremely high. I call it hypervigilance. I connect in a way that's extremely energetic towards circumstances and my environment specifically. And it's something that I've had to teach myself and cope myself through and help myself with, because it's something that has really affected my energy. It's something that's really brought me down because I take on other people's energy and it really, really affects me. So that's something that I've learned as of recently. I call it my bubble. Every single morning before I get out of my house, because my house is my safe space. I've created that for myself, and that always will be that way. And that should be for you too, I hope. I created this bubble. It's like my aura bubble. And I don't know if you've seen the old movie Bubble Boy. It's really funny. But in Bubble Boy, he's just in this giant bubble, and he has to roll around because he's like, his parents have convinced him that he's allergic to everything and that he can't leave the bubble. And basically, that's exactly what you need to figuratively imagine yourself with. But I mean figuratively as in like metaphorically and physically. So you really want to close your eyes and actually envision that bubble around you, because that's your aura. And that aura is very real. That aura is what is going to stop other people's negative or positive or pessimistic or angry, any kind of energy that's unwanted or undesirable for you. Which is extremely crazy to learn about, because now, for the first time in my life, people aren't pushing everything onto me. Now I can tell them that I'm not accepting this anymore and I don't need this anymore. It's not something that I want for me and myself anymore. So it's a beautiful awakening and understanding to that. As of recently, I've always kind of had this thing. Some people are going to call me crazy here, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's your opinion, and I love and respect every single person's opinion because it's theirs, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's no right or wrong here. There's just personal experience. I, a long time ago, started feeling that the universe was kind of guiding me, if you will, but it's in a way that I can't really describe, and it's in a way that is so hard for me to even place it into words, because of how it transpired and how these certain circumstances actually went in life. But I'm telling you that I either have a guardian angel, which is how I used to think it was, looking out for me and coaching me along the way, pulling my hand along the way that I was supposed to go. But nowadays I'm in full belief that it's the universe, it's God within us, it's all of us, because that's all what we are. That's my power starting to get unlocked within me, and I'm now able to use that and channel it so I can further better myself and all of my surroundings and every single person around me to any single way that I can. And I mean any single way, because I will help any single person in any way that I plausibly can. I'd be honestly honored to, because I think it's beautiful helping other people. I was being gracefully pulled through life by this beautiful hand, but it was an unwilling hand and it was an unasked for hand. And that's the part that gets me the most. This wasn't something I asked for. This wasn't something that I prayed for. This wasn't something that was even expected or even anticipated in my life. I never thought that anything like this would ever happen. But my circumstantial life changed in so many different ways it wasn't even funny. And as I said, I was being guided through life now in such a particular way. And it was causing me to go down the right paths now. It was causing me to meet the right people. And then I started to kind of catch on to it. I started to realize that, holy, like I'm starting to talk and think like this, and now it's starting to happen. And that's when I started to realize that, holy, like maybe I got to talk and think like this a lot more, and I got to start being a lot more positive and a lot more future-like, talking in the future and not so much in the past. And that's when I started doing that. And that's when I started attracting the people that I wanted in my life. That's when I started meeting the people that I needed. That's when I started reading the book that I needed. That's when I started paying attention to signs and numbers that were written on the wall, literally. I started getting angel numbers all the time. I started things like plant medicines just fell right into my lap that completely made me transcend my healing journey. It changed me as a man, 1,000%. And there is statistics on this. It's honestly beautiful. It's changed me, and I can't ever go back because I have that awareness and I have that now. And now I'm present. I understand what happened and why it happened and where I was and where I am now and where I'm going. And it ain't going back. There's a funny saying that kind of ties this in very nicely, and it's if you have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, then where's the center of your body? You're pissing on your present. And I think that's extremely important that we realize that, because if we're constantly pulling from our past and we're constantly sitting in regret and resentment and living in betrayal and living in all of these past limiting beliefs and doubts that I had that were all constricted in this poor kid's head when he was a freaking child that I didn't even know. I was my number one bully. I was my number one antagonist. I was probably harder on myself than any individual ever was on me. And once again, that's like the biggest waker-upper for me, because it makes you realize that all of this happens for an intended reason. And it makes you grow, and it makes you understand, and then it makes you be able to communicate in such a way that is so powerful to other people. You don't have to lie. You can just tell the truth. You can just open up to people, and you can just love them. You can just support people, and that's all I've chosen from that day forward. And that's all I ever will continue to choose. You're probably thinking I'm decent at communication and I'm pretty good at talking, but it was never like that. I never was like that ever. I was the kind of kid that didn't get the chance to even say a word in the room. I was the kid that was always in the office or suspended or was doing something out of pocket because I was so mentally distraught. It's very powerful just looking back on all these beautiful moments right now, because it's just teaching me so much even right now about where my mind's at. And it's honestly beautiful. It's the fact that I could go through such an intense thing and still feel love and compassion in my heart for every other living being, even the people that harassed and bullied me every single day for over 5 years consecutively, is pretty wild to me. Because I never thought, to be honest with you, I really never thought I was going to feel love and compassion and beautiful energy towards people that were my assailants. They were my kryptonite. They were the people that brought me down and took me down, and they brought me down like the Titanic. They put so many holes in my soul and my heart that I seeped down to the bottom, and I didn't have a ladder to climb on the way up because there was nobody there. You know what happens when you go sinking that fast? Pressure hits your head. You can't equalize because you're getting pulled down so fast because you're draining, you're sinking. And everything becomes so overwhelming. It becomes so hard for you to process even small things, very minute things. It becomes such an extreme, heavy burden on yourself that it's hard to process anything at all. It's honestly really sad. But once again, it leads you to that next path that you're meant to go down in that time frame that you're intended to go down that path. I've never been an aggressive person at all, but when you got friends and family and past partners and sometimes even like kids telling you that they don't like how you talk to them or that you hurt them, it hits different. It hits deep. Especially being such a compassionate kid that just does not want to hurt any person at all. That was the exact opposite I wanted. I actually wanted people to feel supported and loved. That was like the only thing I wanted for people around me and just in general, to be honest with you. So that kind of ties it in back at the beginning there when I was talking about the having the right intentions and having a pure heart, but not understanding that you aren't present and you're not actually as nice as you think you're being, if that makes sense. So you could say the most, like I said earlier, you could say the most beautiful thing to somebody, but unfortunately from their circumstances and things that have happened to them, that could be such a thing that's very volatile, and it's extremely discriminating, if you will. It's something that feels like it's a personal attack, which is wild that that just came up, because that's how I felt about everything when I was talking earlier, how I had physiological changes within my body and my surroundings. That's exactly how I felt. I felt as if I was being attacked by every single person that would talk to me. Even if people would just like say something fairly simplistic and just like be talking to me about like me being too loud or something like that, I would have such a reaction that I would cry. And I was so traumatized that I struggled with communication. In a one-on-one environment, I felt like I was being attacked, and I felt very, very uncomfortable, and I would have panic attacks, and I would not be able to breathe very well. And it's been a friggin' battle working through all of that. But there is a but. I'm past it, and life gets so much more beautiful when you can just communicate how you feel to people, when you can just tell them how you feel, when you can just be honest, when you can be transparent with somebody. It's another level that you don't actually get to experience, or a lot of people don't get to experience. And it's something that me and my friend group and family now are able to freely have with each other. And it's helping spiritual growth and mental health issues and crises, at least in my family and all of my friends, and every single person I've been helping out with, or at least has been communicating with me with, right? They've been participating in the back-to-back feedback is what I like calling it. An accountability partner is what I call it. So an accountability partner is somebody that's going to hold you to everything that you say, and they're going to make sure that you're doing your best because they love and care about you, and they don't want anything to happen to you that you wouldn't want to happen to them. So having those accountability partners are so extremely vital for our mental and physical well-being, because if we don't have those people around us, you're going to end up being like somebody like me. I don't like saying this, and it seems harsh, but if I would have had somebody who would have just been coaching me along the way a little bit better and supporting me more, a lot of these things in my life would have never happened, and I could have helped a lot more people already, which is completely irrelevant to me. I'm here at this exact moment for this exact purpose in this exact time. That being said, it's hard. It is really hard looking back at everything that's transpired in my life and everything that's, even thinking about what is going to transpire. I've been very, very, very latched onto my nieces and nephews. I have 4 nieces and 2 nephews, and they're my everything. They're like, if I feel like I'm just like done, like I just can't handle anything anymore, I just call up my sister, thankfully, and she's so amazing with me and the kids, and I'll just ask them if I can snag the kids, and I just take them, and it's like 1,000 therapy sessions rolled into one hangout with the kids. But I don't let anything out for myself. I don't talk. It's love. It's just love. It's just me loving them, and it's them loving me. And it's just unconditional. There is no if you didn't clean your room, you don't get to go to your friends. There is no, you didn't do that good in school today, so you're not allowed to have dessert. There is none of that manipulation or tactic game going on. It's just straight love, and it's unconditional support with each other. And it helps me heal to an immense amount. It is honestly unbelievable at the feeling that it causes within me. But now, instead of it being like before and being a negative physiological change, it's really good. It's so beautiful. Instead of having these resentful feelings and these resentful things coming up, now I'm just having all these beautiful things, and I'm having all these beautiful expressions from my nieces and nephews, and I see that I'm their support system. I'm the positive, influential person. I'm the one who's able to coach them along the way and do everything that I can in my power to support them and to love them and just care for them in every single way and just let them blossom into the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful children that they are. I got a quick fact for you here, because this is why I struggle so hard with communication. The moment you're first traumatized is the moment that your mental progression stops. It sounds crazy hearing that, I bet. I bet it really does. But if you think about it, and I'm not going to point any fingers here, but I've seen some people that are running around in their 60s and 70s acting like a 14-year-old kid. And there's a reason for that. If we don't dig back into inside of here and feel, experience, understand, be present with those feelings and understand those feelings, then we have no idea where we're going or what we're going to be doing in our lives. Which the truth is, that is already how it is. But at least with my state of mind and all of the work and everything that I've done in my life, I'm actually able to push past all of this now. I'm able to see the greener grass on the other side. Although I don't even really like that saying, because I think the grass has always been greener. It's just, I forgot to water it. I forgot to water it, right? And when I mean water it, I mean I forgot to put good nutrients in my body. I forgot to stop doing drugs and alcohol, which were poisoning me and hurting my mental health and my physical well-being. I wasn't putting vitamins in my body. I wasn't doing anything that was healthy for me. I stopped doing sports. All of those things are constantly going to be pushing more pent-up emotions just straight down the barrel again. It's just going to be constantly going down, and that's what makes it so hard again, because you don't understand all of this when you're going through it. It all hits you so much later. It's still beautiful life. What I like to say for the grass is greener on the other side is, there's a wolf. There's two wolves, sorry. There's two wolves. They live within you. One's in the dark, one's in the light. What wolf survives? The one you feed. Doesn't matter if it's dark, doesn't matter if it's light. If that wolf has food, it's gonna live. What we feed into our emotions and what we suppress and put inside of ourselves becomes that wolf. Do you want to feed the wolf that is connected to the yin and yang of love or hate? Because my whole life I was connected to that negative frequency, that low vibrational hatred towards everything and everyone, including myself, my parents, my family, everything. I didn't want anything from anybody. I fucking hated everything. It was awful. And now, not even 5 years after I have quit the drugs and the alcohol, everything is completely flipped. Like I said before, I'm having physiological changes in my body that are all in positive, influential ways now. Now I'm aspiring people. Now I'm sitting here talking to you crying my eyes out, telling my story, because I just want to connect. That's all. I just want other people to connect. I want other people to see that there is crap. We go through it. We all do. That doesn't make my story less, and it doesn't make yours more. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that I'm willing to talk about the dirty, and I'm not willing to just sweep it under the rug. I'm willing to talk about it all. That's true spiritual growth. That's true healing for mental health. If these things detrimentally affected me as they did as growing up as a child, I'd be lost right now. I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna get a little sensitive here, but I would probably kill myself. I would have, 100%. And that's where it hurts me the most, because I've had friends commit suicide, I've had friends of friends commit suicide, and I'm seeing the death rate of men specifically lately, and it's really getting to me. I think that me just talking about my story and just opening up to people and understanding more and just leveling with people can really help raise the frequency of all of us. And another thing too is like I love to inspire people, so I want to show people that you can change, man. You can go from a kid that thought he was ADD and was severely harassed and bullied and was told that he was a homo for having feelings and suppressing your feelings for the next, I think I was 6 when my dad told me that. So I didn't really start feeling my emotions because I still thought they were kind of unhealthy for men until last year, until I went to a program. Really grateful for again. It was called Aware. Beautiful program. I never would have thought that I was ever going to have that for myself. But it's beautiful once you start cracking down those doors of feelings, man. I'm telling you, it is so cool to be able to communicate and be receptive with other individuals and just be honest with them, because I love it so much. I think the number one thing that's helped me in my life recently has been fasting. And I want to touch basis on this fasting because I think it's so powerful. If I fast, and that's not just me, but if you fast as a human being and you stop eating carbohydrates and sugars and fructose, like I was talking about earlier, all those corn syrups, all those terrible sugars, if those blood sugars don't get spiked and your insulin levels stay low enough, your body actually, what it does, it will start flipping. And then from going from a protein source from what comes down the esophagus, it actually switches to protein source that it has stored. Doing that, after you reach about 2 days into your fast, you'll be burning more than 3/4 of a pound of fat per day. I know this sounds alarming to a lot of people because of the indoctrination on earth and how much we actually believe of the media and things that we're told in life. But there's a lot of studies on this, and believe it or not, the longest fast in the world successfully was 386 days. The guy lost like 220 pounds. Pretty wild. He didn't die either. That's the crazy thing. He didn't eat for over a year. There's another really cool study in more modern days, because that was in the 18th century, by David Blaine. And he did 37 days in a glass chamber, I believe in Paris or New York, I cannot recall. And yeah, he went 38 days, and I'm telling you, he maybe had 12 to 13% body fat, maybe 15 being generous. And if he can go 38 days, I think a lot of us can make it a week for sure. But here's why it's not being talked about, and a lot of people don't talk about it, and it's not being published or promoted in any kind of media or any kind of health magazine or anything like this. And it's because it goes through this really cool thing after 2 days without eating any food. It's called autophagy. Autophagy is this cool thing where your cells go to all of the depleted cells, or all the mutated cells, all of the dead cells, all the cells that aren't working up to their optimal temperatures or up to their optimal unit anymore, and it actually reproduces them. It eats them. It's because you're so low on your nutrients that your body actually has to create something for yourself, because this is where it gets a little nerdy and so forth. But you can't, when you're fasting for prolonged periods, you're not able to get a sugar source for the brain. That is the problem. That's where a lot of people run into problems. But the human body is so advanced and intricate and just beautiful that it does this thing called autophagy, right? And when it eats the cells, it is able to produce the cells into something called a ketone. These ketones are known for a brain food. You can't use those stored sugars and fats that you have stored throughout your body and throughout the last however long you've been storing, because those things are all, I just lost my train of thought. Those cells are all connected, and when it comes out of your kidney and your liver, all of those stored sugars and fats within that first 2 days, all of those things can be used wonderfully for brain food and for everything. But then when it comes to that second day without any food at all, your brain has now ran out of food. Your brain has, so you get like this brain fog kind of, but that's when like I said, the autophagy kicks in. And as soon as you get that, you literally go through a cellular reproduction. It's almost as if you're being recreated from the outside or from the inside out. They eat the cell, reproduce a healthy cell, and they eat all the dead nutrients from it. Now, if you think about that, that means that our bodies are able to, in synchronicity with itself, create itself. It's able to literally create new cells out of itself. That's pretty powerful. Can you only imagine what else we're missing out and we're not tapping into? My most recent fast was just over 6 days. It's the proudest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I think I lost probably, you got to keep in mind there is water weight here, but I think I lost 13 pounds in 6 days. Now, also keep in mind, they not necessarily recommend that you do what I do. I've always been a little headstrong with trying to push myself and striving to be better. So I actually pushed myself for as long as I could possibly go. And I didn't stay out of the gym or going for walks or working and so forth during those 6 days, which is, they actually recommend that you tone down all of those things so that you don't put out as much of a caloric consumption. But I didn't. I like going to the gym still. I like staying active and fit. I like going swimming, hiking, paddleboarding. I like staying out on my toes all the time. So I just kept going at it. And it was beautiful. I've lost an unbelievable amount of weight, and I've never felt the mental clarity that I have right now. And that fast was about a week ago. So it's something that just really needs to be talked about. It just doesn't really get talked about enough, and it's something that we need to promote more, because I think we're overeating and overfeasting, and it constantly is just putting terrible mutagens in our body, and they're not or pathogens in our body, and they're not healthy, they're not great, they're not good for us, they're terrible for us. But for some reason, we're all just abusing it, and we just keep going. I'm not even sure I honestly had no idea what I was going to talk about. I had no clue. I don't even know how to wrap anything up. I don't even know how to say goodbye. If there's one thing I do know, it's that this isn't going to be the last time you're seeing me. I want to just spread love and light and positivity today, and you're fucking worth every single second of the battle. Every single fucking second.